10. If we could do roll call, please.
Commission members Brown, Fuller,
Present.
Capel,
Present.
Greer,
Present.
Harris, Chairman Vieira,
Present.
Vice Chairman Smith. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Capel, would you mind leading us in the pledge this morning?
Please repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Invocations.
Good morning. I'm Reverend Maxine Schultz from Revealing Truth. And if you'd like to stand, if you'd like to close your eyes, just let's know that the Spirit that created the world, the universe, is right here and right now operating in, around, and through each of us here for the Criminal Justice Commission, guiding us, bringing us to the right conclusions, to the right awarenesses, and with the right debate, if necessary, to get to those points. It's Spirit, God, higher power, Buddha, Allah, that brings us together as one to know the wholeness and the completeness that each one of us is the face of our higher power. Thank you, God, for your blessings. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. We'll move on to presentations. Is Lieutenant Rubel, is he with us today? We have down anti-gang operations presentation.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, no, Eric Rubel will not be here to do that. There'll probably be another presentation later, but because of some of the notoriety and some of the criminal content of it, they decided that they couldn't do it at this time.
Thank you very much. And the weed and seed update, Ms. Janie Hodge.
And she called me this morning. She may be late, but she's probably not going to be here. Weed and Seed's is going great. They're beginning their second year of the grant, and we've got a lot of things planned. She's made some headway with corrections and parole, and she just graduated the third class at our last meeting. It's been extremely successful as far as their reentry program. So everything's going good with Weed and Seed.
Thank you very much.
Also, if you'd like, we'll make sure that Janie can come, because we do have a DVD of that graduation from that reentry program, and we'd like to present that to you. But we'd like her to present it because she knows all the people that were involved.
Great.
Okay,
Look forward to it. Public business from the floor agendized. Do we have any, Jerry? Consent calendar approval of the minutes. Commissioners, did you get a chance to look at those? Any questions or comments? No?
I'll move that we approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Any discussion? Vote.
Need one more.
Let me try that.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you. New business, discussion of recommendations to City Council regarding urgency ordinance 953 relating to loitering and attendance at city events by members of Criminal Street Gang. I know attached with the agenda that had gone out to the commissioners, there was the staff report that went to the City Council on the 28th of September with the minutes in the ordinance as well. I know that in looking through the minutes of that meeting on the 28th, there was comment from the mayor and from City Council with regards to the commission either taking a look at some potential rewrites and considerations. Do you know if there's something coming forward at all on that, or?
Yeah, the discussion the council has, just for background, the ordinance we're referring to as relates to criminal gangs at public events and in public flying colors and using intimidating nature. The ordinance was approved on an urgency basis because we had some issues at a public event. At that point, the council referred it to your commission to identify modifications, changes to that ordinance, or looking for recommendations as it relates to your professional expertise with regard to that ordinance specifically, for further review to come back and not be an urgency ordinance, but rather be a permanent ordinance, or for that matter, not be a permanent ordinance based on your recommendation. So the ordinance is drafted. I anticipate you can change from an urgency ordinance to a regular ordinance upon your recommendation without modification, but they wanted to, have you hear public testimony, get your insights as it relates to the ordinance, and then get a recommendation from this commission prior to making it a formal ordinance.
So just basically take a second look, take them a little more time to go through that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Comments from commissioners, questions, statements?
I guess my first question would be then, is it the intent to maybe agendize this again then and take more public testimony here, or is that the purpose of it being on the agenda today?
It wasn't listed as a public hearing, although it is listed on the agenda. There is always opportunity for public comment. The ordinance requires a public hearing in front of the city council to be approved. So it'd be, I mean, if you want to advertise to folks to, come on down and provide your input to the commission through a different format or through a public hearing notice or some other type of process, we'd be happy to do that. But, it really is up to your commission.
Well, I would suggest
you could take action today if you wanted to. It is an agendized item, and you could take that action and make a recommendation to the city council off of this agenda.
my feeling is that if we're going to be suggesting rewrites, possible rewrites to it, that we ought to invite public testimony, maybe advertise for that and see if we can get some people here that will give us different points of view.
I think another consideration that we may want to entertain is that maybe a few of us, 3 of us for that matter, might take it upon ourselves to have a committee, if you will, to review the ordinance, put it on the agenda, hear testimony from the public as well, and then make any revisions as we think may be appropriate to bring back as an action item as well, would be another option to take a look at.
I agree with that.
Having stated that, is there any commission members that would like to be part of such a committee?
I would like to.
As would I.
Okay.
There can only be 3, just to
Right.
clarify. You can't have more than 3.
And in light of the fact that we have two gone, with your permission, maybe I give those 2 a call and see if either of those might be interested in serving on this as well.
That's fine. If they don't, I'd be happy to. If one
Okay.
of those 2 do not.
All right. Thank you.
So the suggestion would be that this committee would suggest some possible revisions, and that follows then public testimony, or would be followed by a hearing, or?
My suggestion personally would be that these 3 individuals, whoever they may end up being, look at the ordinance, look at what has taken place up to this point through the minutes, see if there's anything that they believe would be a change that may be in order, and that come back to this body for consideration, also for the public, agendized to solicit any further input, review it again, and then come back maybe at a separate time for a vote. That would go to the council in a recommendation manner. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right.
I have one question, Mr. Caudell, if I could. The emergency ordinance as it's written today, does that preclude alleged gang members from attending a city council meeting or criminal justice commission meeting or any other meeting? When I read it, it talks about on public property and city events. Would that preclude them from being able to attend and participate in these meetings?
I defer to Lieutenant Dowden as relates to enforcement of it and specifically the ordinance.
I think that it would depend on the circumstances. You know, I mean, I think the main focus is that if we have gang members that we believe are actively involved in some type of gang activity and they're dressed in some type of gang attire for that for the purpose of that gang activity, I think that would qualify. I mean, if there's something on the agenda where there's a specific person that wanted to come address the commission, I don't see that as something that would be, you know, part of the ordinance. I mean, because they're here for some specific business, and I mean, I think the whole idea of the ordinance is we want to make sure that these people aren't down here, you know, in the city areas involved in gang activity.
That's fine. I certainly think the intent, the way you've described it and the way I understand it, is clear. That's what the city wants, and obviously it's what the city council would like, representing the citizens. I just had that question posed to me, you know, in as much as this is a city event or a city function on city property, would they be precluded just by the drafting of that ordinance to attend? So there's some concern that maybe that was overbroad in that area, but if you're saying that it is not just completely out of the question for them to be able to attend and have input at a city meeting, provided that there isn't some other evidence or reason to believe they're here for intentions other than that. That's what I was trying to find.
That's kind of the way I look at it for enforcement. I mean, the bottom line is, I mean, you know, we're looking at are they here for criminal conduct or as a group to intimidate? Okay, and if it doesn't qualify within that, I mean, if they're here and they have specific business here with the city, the commissions, the council, I mean, I think that, well, obviously, I think that we're going to allow them to, you know, present.
Okay. Thank you.
I really think that's going to be the basis of one of those questions out there when you figure it out is what is the intent of these individuals or groups as they come forward or participate. So, thank you. Anything else with regards to this item? Commission staff presentations, updates, reports, monthly crime stats. Jim Cobalt.
Thank you, Commissioner. This report covers the time period from October 10th, 2010 through November 6th, 2010, the 4 weeks since our last meeting. As we take a look at the data, you'll see week 45 is incomplete data. We were only able to extract data up through about Thursday of last week, so this contains the data for that. The other 3 weeks are fairly complete data, with the exception of arrest reports from the station for weeks 44 and 45. You can see Part 1 totals of 82 in week 42. That's getting to the upper limit of the threshold that we like to see in that area. Again, we like to try to kind of keep things between about 65 Part 1s and 95 Part 1s to stay within at least a flat line, if not a decline. Then in week 43, we drop down to 78 Part 1s. And again, these are Part 1s that we are able to geocode from the information. There could actually be more outliners out there, but the addresses didn't lend themselves to being geocoded. Week 44, we saw a decline down to 57, which kind of offsets that week 42. And then week 45, as I said, up through about Thursday of last week, we had 66 Part 1s at that point. You can see the 2 weeks that are cataloged up there for arrests. Week 42 had 93 arrests, and week 43 had 160. And again, this data are collected off of the booking slips that come through the station that are forwarded to us. They may differ from the other arrest report that you're given, simply because those arrest reports that are reported to you generally include if you had one offender but multiple crimes that the offender was arrested for, you might see that reflected in their data, where these are just one human being, one count. And then down at the bottom, you see the unique report numbers issued. In week 42, we had week 45, we had the low for reports, which was 587, and in week 43, we had the high for reports, which was 612. As we look at most active reporting districts, again, we see the reappearance of reporting districts 1137, 1135 in the top two, with 44 Part 1 crimes and 40 Part 1 crimes, respectively. Then we drop down to reporting districts 1126 and 1127, which are in the high 20s, and then 1132 rounds out the top five. If we would have counted the top six, we would have seen 1121 meet that as well. And again, 1121, 1135, and 1137 are districts that we watch very closely because they tend to have more activity than many of the other districts that are out there. I'll just give you kind of a quick overview of where those particular districts lie so that you can see those. This is 1137. You can see the distribution of the Part 1 crimes in 1137. You can see a lot of it is centralized over between Avenue J and Avenue K, from Challenger Way over to about 20th Street East. 1137, again, the boundaries are not quite as squarely defined. You have the area here from 15th Street East over to 30th Street East, and then from Challenger Way over to 30th, from Avenue J up to H. But again, it's almost like a mirror in that area that's north of Avenue J. You can see much of the Part 1 crimes are centralized between Challenger Way and 20th Street East, I to J. So you can see that those areas have a lot higher concentration of activity than the other areas in those reporting districts. That's not unlike 1127, where we have the same issues on Valley Central Way. Here's 1126. That's the area from Avenue J down to Avenue M, 10th Street West, 20th Street West. Again, we can see a concentration of some of the larcenies along the apartment complex that sits over south of Avenue K. That's one that we've discussed in the past. There's kind of been a feeling maybe that they're making some headway, but the evidence, I think, is still not tilting in their direction. You can also see some activity up here along Avenue I and 20th Street West, up around the hospital, and probably what a lot of that is are just crimes that are reported at the emergency room of the hospital, so they're going to take some hits there as well. The next most active reporting district was that 1127 that we talked about before, and of course here is where the Valley Central Way influence comes in, and some of the area that is south of Valley Central Way. You can see the activity there. When you get further out into the western edges of this reporting district, where it's more residential in nature, you don't have the prevalence of crime or Part 1 crime. Then 1132. A lot of the criminal activity, or excuse me, a lot of the activity is fairly closely related to Antelope Valley High, and then it also picks up some of the corners that it shares with other reporting districts as well. You can see down here at Challenger Way and Avenue J, and again, this is almost a mirror of that area that was across the street in 1137 and 1135 that kind of went along the Challenger Way area. And then you come down to Avenue J and Division Street, and you see a little more activity down here where it shares some borders with 1133 and 1123. When we look at some of the Part 1 crimes of interest to us, I broke down again, the residence burglaries for these areas. And as you take a look at the residence burglaries for these areas, you can see clear distinction for 1135, 1137, and 1121 again. They pretty much led in those areas. When we get into larcenies involving vehicles, again, the top three are 1135, 1137, and 1121, followed up by 1126, which shares the same number with 1121. When we look at larcenies involving vehicles, if we look at which vehicle makes are most often targeted in the crime reports, we can see that Hondas still, and this is not uncommon, Hondas still kind of lead the way in that area, followed by Chevrolets, GMCs, Nissans, Kias, and then you start getting down to some of the one-time occurrences. Larcenies involving vehicles, again, we get to the same things that we've talked about for several commission meetings now. If you take that this is the point of entry into force used, normally what occurs to get an unknown is the victim is claiming that they think that their car was locked, but the deputy that takes the report is not seeing any signs of forced entry. So there is the possibility that they could have gotten in without leaving any signs of forced entry. But we also take a look at the second position below that, which is the door was just unlocked and the person admits to it when the report was taken. You can take a look at that. You can see, if you look at that, you can see that this is 15, and then if you drop down here and you pick this one up where the entry was through the door, but again, they don't recall whether it was locked or not, that's 16. That's still almost 50% of your larcenies from vehicles that are occurring. I mean, we have a lot of, or we have several windows shattered and things like that. Those are predominantly in our apartment complexes. Which is also interesting because that's also a very heavily populated area, and it occurs in at nighttime when you would think people would maybe not have so much road noise and everything else, but we still see that happening fairly frequently. So again, this is an area, if we get into the prevention side of things, we have to stress that people have to lock their cars. They can't just walk away. They can't leave them in their driveway. They need to be able to lock their cars so that we can prevent some of these opportunistic larcenies from vehicles. We took a look at the property taken. This was kind of interesting because last week, if you recall, or last month, if you recall, some of the most common items taken were actually documents, driver's licenses, social security cards, things like that, that were taken as a result of people's purses being taken or wallets being taken. There seemed to be an emphasis this month on stereos. We tended to have more stereos taken. The other thing that was interesting in some of these reports were people were going into the glove box taking insurance cards, and I'm kind of wondering if there might not be some market developing out there or somebody just looking for a light car that has insurance, so that if they get stopped, the officers seeing that, well, this is a Honda, and it's a Honda on this. It's a different name, but could be. So they let it slide. We should probably stress always checking the VIN on those insurance cards against the VIN that's on the vehicle. We also, when we take a look at the type of location where these larcenies occur, you can see apartment lots are leading the way pretty substantially. It's not even really close when you get into public parking lots. So there has to be some kind of responsibility on the part of the apartment owners to at least give their folks a safe place to park their vehicles. And we'll go to this one in just a minute. If you take a look at the, well, for the overview, any questions from the commissioners on that? Okay, the next chart that I'd like to look at real quick is our 52-week chart. The good news with regard to this is, again, this doesn't look at the fluctuation that we often look at when we're comparing our crime rate of this quarter to last quarter. But what this does is it takes the previous 52 weeks and it smooths out and it tells us how we're trending over that 52 weeks as opposed to saying, well, this quarter we were higher or lower than last quarter and those kinds of things. Kind of gives us a larger picture and a better reading of what the trend is. We can see, now one of the things that we do in this again is we try to establish, down here you'll see the baseline. Baseline for each crime is calculated by looking at our annual Part 1 crime rate going back, or for that category going back to 1997. You can see the baseline for homicide. We average 0.21 murders per week in Lancaster generally, going back to that time period. Now, we also, this also calculates frequency for us by week and linear. Now, what this doesn't do is in the weeks that we don't have a homicide or the number is 0, it doesn't drop down to 0. So you're going to see this frequency line across the top here, and you're going to see our baseline, this blue line here, across the midsection. And essentially what this is doing is highlighting weeks that we did have homicides. So you can see at this point that we are a little bit above our baseline, but we're flat as far as the 52-week look back goes. Make sense to everybody? We're above the baseline, but we're flat as far as we're not going up and we're not going down. When we take a look at rape or sexual assault, you can see that we are, this is our baseline here. The baseline for rape is 1.08 per week, and you can see that we are trending downward for rape, which is good news for us because that had been trending up in previous reports. Robbery, you can see the spike in the frequency of robbery there, but the good news is if we take a look at our baseline, which is right here, it's trending pretty flat. And at the level that we're trending flat at, we're quite a ways below our baseline. We're actually almost 2 robberies a week below our baseline. As we take a look at assaults, you can see in assaults we are trending, pretty clearly trending downward for that, which is also good news as well. Our baseline is way up here at 16.21 per week, and you can see where our trend line is. Our trend line is down below 10 per week.
Jim, when was the baseline established?
What we do is we look back and we go all the way back to 1997 for a look back, and so we calculate by week since then as to what our average per week is. And so that's the way that the baseline is calculated. And again, for us, if we're going to bring our crime rate down, it's advantageous to us to stay below the baseline. Burglary is flat, but it's a good flat because it's well below the baseline. The baseline is 24.46 per week, and we are trending at below 20 per week. So that's a positive as well. Larcenies trending down. You can see the trend line here. Larcenies are at the baseline for it is 41.13 per week, and you can see that we're trending down towards and getting in the neighborhood of 30 per week. Grand theft auto is also trending down. You can see the baseline up here at 13.88, and we're trending down below 8 per week now. And arson is a very low frequency crime for us, so as we take a look at that, we are trending flat in that, but normally we stay in the neighborhood of 1 to 2 per week. Now, if you take a look at the maps that I provided you up there, the first map that you should look at is the Part 1 crime events report or frequency by reporting district, which will be the top one. And essentially what that map does is it illustrates where the individual Part 1 crime events occurred that could be geocoded, and then it uses a heat density by color coding of Part 1 crime events by reporting district. So you're going to see the frequency for these 4 weeks over on the left side of your legend, and then the explanation for the color code or heat density of each reporting district is in the lower left-hand corner. Second map for you to look at is the spatial trend analysis, and what this does is this compares this week's or this commission reporting period's 4 weeks, and it compares those 4 weeks to the previous 5 weeks that we reported on during the last commission meeting. You can see where Part 1 crimes are going up within the city and where they're going, or where they're going down or showing a relative decrease. And then the third map that you should, or that you were provided, is our forecast for November of 2010. This shows what we're projecting for each reporting district, and if you can see right now that it's also projecting within the scope of that 1121, 1135, and 1137 are going to pop high again. So the only way that we can bring that down is if we reduce the number of Part 1 crimes in those areas during the reporting period. And then finally, during the last commission meeting, we brought up the work that we were doing towards the Antelope Valley Community Youth Court. And I just wanted to give you a brief overview. We promised last week that we would, or last month, that we would give you an overview of the cases that we're handling that are being referred from the Sheriff's Department. And again, the Antelope Valley Youth Court is a diversion program that the city runs so that we can try to help the youths that want to be helped and redirect them and basically keep them out of the system. At this point, we have received 75 cases from the Sheriff's Department. We have 4 cases that are either scheduled for interview or scheduled for the next court date at this moment. We have 11 that are in supervision, meaning that the folks have already been through their court session and they are being supervised by our staff. There were 22 cases sent back to the Sheriff's Department without any action. Those included either 12 with wrong contact information, 9 with that we attempted to contact twice and they didn't respond, or no contact information was given. We had 8 that were deemed to be non-suitable for the rules of this court. 5 of them opted out voluntarily. One of them was because during the screening process they disclosed their involvement in arrest in other criminal activity that wasn't detected. That had to go back, and there were 2 others that were classified in that category. 2 cases failed. One, the judge sent it back because the juvenile had committed an offense since screening, and it was a serious offense, so that had to go back as well. And then we have, at this point, since we started a couple of months ago, we have 1 case that's actually completed, and that's about it. Any questions?
I have a question for Mr. Bazigian. With the criminal rate seems to be appearing to be dropping, where are we for our goal for the year at 3.0?
300 per 10, 300 you're talking about?
Right.
We are very close. We would project right at about 300, given where we're at now. I think I'm going to let Don and Lee talk about some things that we're proposing to get us to that goal. We are right now through October about 5% below where we were last year. You need to put that in perspective. The previous 2 years were 9% and 22% reductions respectively. So to continue to achieve a reduction gets harder and harder, but we're there. But I'll turn it over to Don and Lee.
Okay, thank you.
Well, actually, this is a topic of discussion we had yesterday with our Antelope Valley Crime Fighting Initiative meeting. And the emphasis is to maintain, and if things stay as they are right now, the way we're trending, we will come in under 300 if everything stayed the same. Now, part of the discussion was that we are going to be aggressively carrying out different operations throughout the end of the year, through the holiday season, weekly. Okay, and there's all types of different operations that we discussed and are putting in place throughout the end of the year. So we are definitely, it's a focus goal, and Don can probably talk about the Sheriff's Department's end of that there.
Yeah, well, we kind of consider we're pulling out all the stops. We've redeployed some of our deputies to, for instance, the core deputies. I mean, their whole focus through the end of the year is going to be interdiction of theft. So they're out there doing that. We've got the cops teams, and we've got the commitment for the cops teams for at least through the end of this month that they are going to be totally deployed in Lancaster with the focus of reducing the thefts and reducing the property crimes in our communities. So we're watching, and we're going to watch it daily and try to take a look, anticipate the best that we can, and make sure that we make the best impact that we can over the next 2 months. So that's the goal. We're completely focused on it, and we're going to meet that. We're already, in fact, Mr. DeRico and I were discussing goals where we're going to start in 2011. And I mean, we see this crime trend in the multiple housing units, and we just haven't had a real good impact with those the large apartment buildings. So we're starting in 2011. That's going to be one of our main focuses: getting the landlord-tenant training going on, and trying to affect what's going on in the multiple housing units. So that's where we're going.
And beyond that, just based on how we're allocating these resources in the discussion is we've already had 2 operations where we used information that comes from Mr. Cobalt as well as the crime analyst unit from the Sheriff's Department. We've maintained that out there to specifically target certain crimes in certain areas, and a result of that was we had quite an impact on larcenies in RD 1135 and 1137 for that period when we ran that operation 2 months ago. So we're evaluating the impact of conducting those type of operations, and we're going to do more of those throughout the end of the year as well. We did one, the most recent one was we staged the crime analyst trailer there at 10th West and Avenue K in the Lowe's parking lot, and we deployed from there. The deputies on that particular day, along with probation and Mr. Capel from parole and them, took quite a few people to jail. It was a pretty productive day. And we impacted more of the apartment buildings there on Gadsden, which is some of our more contract-based, HUD direct-based housing, and our multi-housing there. It is an issue for us to get back on track with some of our larger apartment complexes and working with those property owners and property managers through our landlord training program through LandCap and refocus that.
Yeah, and I will add that, these target operations are so successful that, we can go in there and we can spend 1 day in there and then watch for the next 2 or 3 weeks, and crime is decreased in that area where we're impacting it. So you can show the result and the benefit of doing those things. I mean, it's just amazing.
And I think the other side you're going to see with Kent's presentation, with those results were high arrest statistics. That's how active those task force operations were and how successful they were. And with that, I think we'll lead into Kent's presentation because the numbers are pretty substantial.
I got one more question. With the holidays coming around here, are we doing anything to like the Walmarts out here? I'm sure that crime will be up in the Walmart areas.
Yes, but I want to be a good poker player. I'm not going to show my whole hand at this point.
And actually, the folk from Walmart are here, and I'll introduce them. Commissioner Greer and I met with them, and we can talk about some of those strategies. But yes, Don and I have a plan, and we'll be discussing that further with the folks from Walmart. So yes, we definitely have a plan.
I had,
Go ahead. Oh, good.
I had one more question. I should have asked when you asked for follow-up questions on the overview, but first I guess I'll direct it to Lieutenant Downton, and then maybe you've got some data that'll answer it even more clearly. But when I look at 1132, the district over by the high school, and I see the larcenies in there, my first question is, other testimony we've had before the commission previously has indicated there's a lot of burglary and larceny issues with teenage children and truants throughout the day. So when I see the symbols in that area, I wonder, and he also mentioned that's the area where AV High School is that a result of a higher concentration of multifamily units in those areas, because I know they exist, or is it more a byproduct of the high school being in that area and that age group there, or is it a combination of both?
Yes.
Okay.
No, I mean, you're right on, but no, I mean, traditionally it's because of the high school, okay? And I mean, we've still got a truant problem, okay? That hasn't gone away. I mean, we do a pretty good job of, staying focused on it, but I mean, that is one of the issues, okay? And we can see it. You can look at all the high schools, primarily on the east side, but there is a increase in larceny-based crimes around those high schools. But then you're also correct when you look at the type of housing that we have around that high school, okay? So the answer is yes.
All of the above.
Yeah.
One other thing, Commissioner Greer, one of the things that we're seeing in the youth court, at least because the parents are required to come with the children, many of the parents are struggling with the skills to be able to properly supervise their children. In fact, if you talk to the one judge that we have, who is actually a juvenile court judge, she will tell you the problem really doesn't originate with the kids; it originates with the parents. And one of the things we had an advisory board meeting yesterday for the youth court, and one of the things that came up in that is, how can we, through this youth court, give parents the tools that they need to be able to properly supervise their kids? We had one stand at that podium just the other day who just said, "My child's out of control and I can do nothing." And this is not unusual in the arena. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to figure out, okay, how can what kind of services can be available to help these parents? Now, we may not be able to do anything with the juvenile who was here, but there are two more in line right behind him from that parent. So if we can help that parent, we may not be able to prevent that child, but maybe the two that are behind him.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning. I'm going to go over some arrest stats from October, concentrating on the last 2 weeks in October. Okay, this slide is going to cover our Part 1 arrest activity for the last 2 weeks of October in comparison to the previous 2 weeks. Increased slightly, up 6 arrests from the previous 2 weeks, 82 Part 1 crime arrests during the last 2 weeks of October. One of the encouraging signs here on this slide is you'll see that our larceny arrests are increasing, and that's one of the areas that we've targeted with some of these special operations. So we're excited about that, to see that number going up, and hopefully those larcenies can begin to go down. Our Part 2 activity for those last 2 weeks actually fairly consistent with the the previous 2 weeks, plus one arrest, 553 compared to the 552 for the prior 2-week period. Again, in this area, our warrant arrests appear to be up, as well as our vehicle laws, and I think our DUIs are about the same of what they were previously, and we're obviously getting into that season of the DUIs, so you're likely going to see that number increase as well. Our narco arrests have gone down slightly, and I believe that can be contributed to a number of our special teams have been involved in a number of these other special operations, and they've been kind of pulled away from doing some of those things that they do. Other than that, the numbers are pretty consistent across the board. And this is usually the slide that we're concerned with as a station, and pretty proud of this, that we compare ourselves to other stations throughout the county, both our Part 1 crime arrest and our Part 2 crime arrest. And as you can see, some of the larger stations and the busier stations within the county, we have made significantly more Part 1 crime arrest as well as Part 2 crime arrest than any of these other stations. You look at Century and, Century, Palmdale, considerably more than both of those stations. So our guys are out there being aggressive. Our special teams are out there being aggressive, and the arrest stats obviously indicate that. And this is just going to show a comparison to last year. The top graph is our Part 1 crime data, and the red bar going across is the current year, and the green bar going across is the previous year. We're trending upwards in our Part 1 crime arrests slightly from where we were last year. Last year during the month of October, 145 Part 1 arrests. This year at 158. And as you can see across the board, there was maybe August, September, we were slightly down from where we were the previous year, but it's picked back up again. We have declined slightly in our Part 2 arrests. If you go down to the bottom graph, we actually are, for October, pretty consistent with where we were last October. We had some bad month of May, June, we were kind of slightly down there, but again, pretty consistent across the board. And we've had a slight decrease in the total number of arrests since the previous year, but all the numbers look pretty good. So, do you have any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
California Highway Patrol update, Captain Hoos.
Yes, we're October are the stats we brought in, and we're pretty much going the same direction, which is excellent. Our fatal collisions remain down. Right, currently they're down 57% from last year, which brings us, instead of 26 fatal collisions at this time last year, we have 11. Overall, so we're on a 3-year average. We're also down around 45%. Our total collisions in the Antelope Valley are down around 4.6%. We're still averaging right around 100 collisions a month, as opposed to what we used to experience around 130 or 140. Our DUI involved, and actually DUI at fault collisions, are down significantly. In October, they're down 50%. For the year, they're down 19%, and our DUI arrests are up. Our motorist service are up a little bit. I think it's a reflection of the economy. And our overall citations, the regular tickets that you receive from the Highway Patrol, which I'm certain no one here has received any, but on occasion we do issue a citation or two. Our normal citations, our standard citation is down in number. We're down around 3 or 4%, but our citations we're issuing for fix-it tickets are up significantly, and that's also a sign of the times. I mean, if we can have someone accomplish the repair on their vehicle without having it cost them any money more than the repair, that's our goal, safer vehicles. We have a DUI corridor coming in. We're very fortunate here in the Antelope Valley and also Santa Clarita Valley. The SR-14 from Avenue H south all the way to Interstate 5 was selected as one of the 2 DUI corridor projects for the Office of Traffic Safety for this year, one of 2 in the state of California. We're going to get, actually we have a grant coming in that is going to cover significantly increased enforcement on the 14. We'll be beginning January 1st. Our primary focus on enforcement is going to be Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday nights. We're focusing on DUI, but it's going to be overall enforcement. You're going to see probably in general, if you're on the 14, we'll have 3 extra vehicles, sometimes 6 extra vehicles on those days, patrol cars. And enforcement in general is going to be, you'll see a lot of traffic stops. Another thing we're going to do is involve our Sheriff's Department, local community leaders, business leaders, the political leaders, and have 3 meetings over the 10-month period to try to brainstorm and determine what our local community is looking for, not just DUI arrests, but how we can impact the community for education and reduce the incidence of DUI collisions on the 14. The project will go till September 30th. It ends at the federal fiscal year, and I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have our first meeting January 27th, and I will be contacting all of you to just let you know what's available and if you would like to attend. With the holiday season coming, we're going to have some more traffic in the Antelope Valley. And with that traffic, we're going to increase patrols, mostly to keep it flowing. People are going to be distracted, so they need to be attentive. The seat belts are important. The PDA, all our new gigs, the new iPads that people are playing with while they're driving, and reading the holiday newspapers is going to slow them down a little bit and probably cause a few more collisions. Normally in December, our collision, the severity of the collisions go down, but the incident of collision goes up. A lot of the small crashes around the malls and such. So we will be attentive to that, and hopefully our community will be safe. Things are going well.
Thank you very much, and glad to hear about the recipient of being that the corridor. That's good. Thank you very much. Commissioner Harris was unable to make it today, so we'll move on to the Business Watch Subcommittee update. Mr. Jericho.
Hi, I'd just like to introduce the folks from Walmart first. Greg French. Greg is the general manager at the Eastside Walmart. Roy Combs. Roy is the store manager at Valley Central Way. That's correct, right? Yes. And then Nancy Mercado. She's a asset protection lead person there for the Eastside Walmart, correct? And that's some of the folks we met with, Commissioner Greer and I. We did kind of the same format that we've done at the prior retail store. We had a meeting with a lot of folks from Walmart from the region. We discussed some of their policies regarding loss prevention, and really they have a huge tiger by the tail there. It's a big place, and I was impressed with the amount of surveillance and cameras and things they had there in the store, and we talked about different ideas on how to impact issues that they're having. I mean, it went beyond just the scope of just thefts and loss prevention. It went with dealing with vagrancy, panhandlers, all types of issues that they're having there at those locations. So, any comments from Commissioner Greer?
No, I guess I just follow up on what you said. There were, I would say, half a dozen or more representatives from Walmart, including government relations and I don't remember the other title, but there was at least a half a dozen people there, and they took a lot of time to discuss with us their policies. The one thing that came through clear to me was that even if at a local store level they wanted to implement some type of intervention or apprehension program, they get their orders from the corporate headquarters, and they have a policy and there's a procedure that's set in place. I'll say again today what I've said before, which is I understand that, and I understand every retailer, everybody in business's desire to avoid any kind of injury, serious or even not very serious, any type of injury to their employees or to customers. But I'm always concerned if it turns into a situation where the law enforcement gets inundated with calls to basically come out and take reports when people have walked out of the store. And in some regards, there have been recent articles in the paper where there have been incidents in L.A. where security personnel have tried to intervene and stop things, and the result wasn't good in one incident. It was very bad. At the same time, it just sits really wrong with me to imagine people taking goods and leaving any store, no matter what store it is, without some attempt to stop them other than just, will you stop and can we talk, or something along those lines. I feel that all these stores have an obligation, no matter how large or how small they are, to be a part of the solution. If you're not a part of the solution, then you're contributing to the problem. And this isn't just aimed at Walmart. That just happened to be a store that we met with. I heard it from other retail operators.
And just for part of what our plans are, especially as we move through the holidays, and we'll do some of the things that we've done in the past to deal with the impact, because there's such a high volume now coming to this era. But I'm going to schedule a time for Lieutenant Doughton and I to meet with the folks at both stores, okay, so we can come up with bringing some extra resources in to deal with some of the issues that they have. Again, Lieutenant Doughton he's dedicated our core team to that focus, especially as it deals with larcenies in these areas here for probably the remainder of the year. So we'll come up with a good plan, working together with the folks from the store, and I appreciate their candor with us when we met with them, and some of the issues that they are facing within their own organization that limits their ability to do some of the things that they would like to do. So we're going to continue to work as good community partners and move forward here.
Great. Thank you, and thank you to the representatives for being here today, and looking forward to our continued work. Thanks. Public safety update, anything, Mr. Dorico?
Well, yeah, there's a lot going on. Megan, are you very tired? I think Megan's had neighborhood watch meetings every night for like a month straight. Her and Marlene is not here yet because I've adjusted her today for one she has tonight. That program, we're doing very well with that. We have a lot of interest generated out there through our groups, and they are getting phone calls daily on bringing more folks in. We're getting more into the dealing with specific issues as it relates to each neighborhood, rather than just coming out and just feeding them a bunch of information that what we want to talk about. We're really pushing them to interact with us about what they perceive to be the issues in their neighborhoods and their part of the community, and then bringing resources to bear and the proper agencies to deal with those issues. And so far that's gone very well. We're going to, again, focus more with the business watch as we go through the rest of the remainder of the year, and that's a priority for next year. And then, again, Don and I have worked, and Jim's involved in those meetings, and all the strategies that we're coming up with, basically through the different task force programs we have, to use all the agencies we have out there, incorporate more of some, like the subsidy program agencies, to be more involved on their side of things as well, to combat all the crime issues that we have in the community and public safety. And so I think we're on the right path. We definitely have seen the results for 3 years of very hard work here being done by all the agencies involved. We're certainly not going to let up. Okay, and I think at this point we're fine-tuning the things that we're addressing. So I think, things look very good. Yes, Mark.
Yes.
I'd like to echo one thing that Lee said. I think people don't realize that the size of our public safety staff, they're essentially all here today. We have Lee and Jim and Megan and Marlene, and Tammy. Oh, I didn't see Tammy. Okay, Tammy. Lots of cities our size would have a lot more than that, but it's what they do that really impresses me. They give all out. They will work on their own overtime at nights without obviously getting paid. They're salary employees, and they really care what they're doing. And, when the economy improves and such, we would certainly like to beef up some areas of our city, including this, but right now it doesn't allow it. But I can honestly say we have not missed a beat. In fact, we've improved over the last year with the work of these people. So I just want to make sure that they're acknowledged for the great effort that they put in.
Again, thank you for a job well done, and I know those things don't just happen, and also with your relationship and the cooperation you have with the Sheriff's Department as well. When you look at our recent events with the Streets of Lancaster, the Halloween event, and I know with the holiday season and the Christmas event coming up here real soon as well, when you have thousands of people on the one street out there on the boulevard, and have gone very, very well. So kudos to all those that were a part of that.
No incidents at the Boulevard, and did not expect that kind of turnout. It was unbelievable. I mean, a huge event. People are still talking about it, but not one issue. And again, the Grand Prix in Lancaster, we had a couple of missing kids that we were able to resolve within minutes. That's about the extent of issues we dealt with. So it's been very positive.
We'll keep it up, and I know we have that event coming on the 11th of December as well, so I'm sure we'll have another large crowd. Okay, public business from the floor, non-agendized. Mr. David Paul.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, good morning. I spoke last night here at City Council about how proud I am of the direction our city is moving, and I think that this commission is a large part of that, and I thank you. I can remember back to when this commission was born, and before that we had nothing. I just wonder how we got along. We're doing much better, and I'm really excited. I wanted to talk about the emergency ordinance, and when it was discussed at the council meeting, I think when you look to review that, there's the question of the constitutionality of it. So you can look at it two ways. You can either draft it the way you want it and then see if it passes constitutional muster, or you can look at it the other way and have it be constitutionally sound from the start. So that's my only comments on that. And Jim, as far as the crime statistics, I will tell you, your presentation has become much less boring. I would like to see you up there, though, like a TV weatherman with a green screen. In Part 1 crimes, we have dropped, like the CNBC ticker. I mean, that's about the attention span that most people have in the squawk box. Just give me the stats and see where we're going. But, gentlemen, and everybody here, thank you so much for what you're doing. I appreciate it. I see the difference, and the only thing I would like to see is the community more aware of the great effort that goes into making this a safer town. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Commissioner comments. Any comments from any of the commissioners? Okay. Having heard none, this meeting is adjourned at 11:06. Thank you. With our next meeting on December 8th,